Hi T, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Though technically it's still day here, at least for like a few more hours.
Culturally night when it's after 5 o'clock or not on the West Coast?
Oh no, on the West Coast it's not night until like 7 p.m.
Okay,
But you have to remember the West Coast like starts business hours start at like 9 a.m. on the West Coast.
sure.
Yeah, so it's all a little shifted, but
Yeah. I mean, I used to live in LA and we wouldn't eat till like 9 o'clock at night usually, but I don't know that I'd never even thought about like the definition of night. Anyways, welcome to the show. Um, T is now with Snowbright Studios, which is an LGBTQ friendly studio based in Cleveland, although you are in Portland, correct?
yep.
And you're COO, and
hmm
is that too many O's? Chief Operating Officer, and you used to be with Haba as community manager. And so you
no,
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 no, no.
my
Oh, I'm
direct
sorry.
report was community manager. I
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was
So what?
the
Go ahead.
I was head of games for North America at Havre.
Head of games. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. On
No,
the
it's fine.
title, head of games, even better. I mean, Haba is a massive company. I didn't send you this in the questions, but could we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, we can talk about Hava.
Oh, okay. It's a massive company, and I don't think most people realize how big it is here in the States because they usually think of like kids games.
Yeah.
But I have a few friends who've gone to Essen, and it's a lot bigger over there.
Yeah, Hava is huge. Hava is 83 years old this year. And it is basically it's not fair to say it's the Hasbro of Germany because it's bigger than that. Like Haba in Germany is a large company that has lots of smaller companies under it, which include like department stores and like a clothing brand, and like they have their own kindergartens, and like it's very big. So there's a small village called Bad Rodek, and that's where it's headquartered, and it's like that village is the Haba. Like it's just the whole village. If you live there, you either work for Haba or the hot springs, which is like up the road, or you somehow support the community that is Haba in the village. So yeah. But in Germany, Haba is everywhere. Like the clothing brands, they also do like school supplies, furniture,
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
brand barbecues. Just like I used to have, I recycled it when I quit. I used to have like a catalog that was like all the stuff that Hava made, and it was like this big. You could get anything. So yeah.
So you have tons of experience even before coming to found uh, your own company. Talk about that experience if you would. Why did you decide to make that switch to Snowbright?
So one of the things that at Hava I was doing was I was in charge of importing and sales and marketing for games for North America and a lot of the English market in general, because I also handled UK and Australia and New Zealand. But I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about games and how games got imported and all this other stuff. But I like kept consistently seeing, and I have for a few years now in the tabletop industry, just kind of a gap in like who's represented and who has a platform and who has a voice, and like who is getting published more often than not and things like that. And so I learned a lot at Hava, and when I felt like I was like, oh cool, I know enough now, I think I can help these people and raise up these voices and do these things that I want to do to change the industry, to see the change that I want to see in the industry. That's when I was like, cool, I think it's time. So yeah, so I quit my job 2 weeks before Christmas, much to the surprise of my boss, and took a long 4 week like vacation, and then I like evaluated stuff, and then I came on at Snowbright and took over part ownership of the jeez,
Yes,
company.
yes.
Yeah. So Snowbright existed. Snowbright actually just turned 3 last week.
Okay.
But prior to me coming on board, Snowbright Studio was a contract for hire video game development company. So they make games and video games or app games for different organizations. So like your museum, you want to gamify the visitor experience, we'll help you make a game for that. So it's definitely like private sector, university stuff, museums, government organizations, AAA game studios, like that stuff that consumers just would never play or even notice that they did. But they were wanting to start making stuff that was more consumer focused and also make stuff that like interested them as a studio, because it's fun and it's okay to make a gamified experience for a museum, but it's hard to be really creative for yourself when you're doing that.
Yeah.
So they were looking for somebody to come on and help figure out that. And I was like, hey, so yeah.
Did you have a like did you just find them randomly, or did you know somebody on staff there, or how did that experience go?
Well, so Grace Collins, who is the CEO of Snowbright, was elected to the board of Gamma for the creators division, which is the like designers division at Gamma. And so I met Grace through that because I was running for a seat on the Gamma board at the same time. And so Grace and I chatted and got to know each other. And then they shared that they were looking for that kind of thing. And that if they asked if I knew anybody, and this was still like October and I was at Havre, and I was like, I don't really know, I'll ask around. And then in December, I was like, hey, what were you looking for again?
Yeah.
So,
I needed some shoes filled.
Yeah.
I wondered if that was the connection because I've seen Grace from the Gamma side of things. So that's really cool that you were able to connect that way. What do you? Sorry, what do you think is most? You've already mentioned sustainability and just the idea of bringing some new games to market. What do you think the most important thing is going to be about that? I don't know how to ask the question. I'm stumbling over my words. How are you going to do that sustainability thing? Let's just talk about it. Let's just get into it. I'm Ryan knows this, you don't know this, but I'm working for a really small company that's print on demand. We were just having this conversation tonight of like, we don't want to buy dice from China. For several reasons. So like, I understand a tiny bit about it, but what are some of the challenges that you're facing with sustainability, making games, bringing things to market? What's going on there? Because there's just a whole lot of things that people might not know about.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into manufacturing anything. And a lot of people, when they think about games, they think about like just the end product. And when you start talking about sustainability with people about games, they just think about the end product. They think about what they get in the mail, what they open, and what they're going to do with it. And a lot of these gamers are like, I'll never get rid of this game. I'll have this game forever and it will go to my children. And so they kind of just ignore the entire landfill conversation of like what happens when the game degrades. And so you can have that conversation, and that conversation is actually kind of like one of the easier conversations to have sometimes. Some people just don't care about plastic, and they're very firm that they don't care about plastic, and you just can't talk with them at a certain point. So games that rely like heavily on plastic miniatures, custom molds for plastic miniatures, like all that kind of stuff, it's not great. One of the things that you can do, just that manufacturers can do and publishers can do, even if the consumers don't care about it, is stop mixing recyclable and compostable materials with plastic. UV coats on paper, doing finishes on paper that are poly based. Same with paints. There's a lot of publishers. There was a certain publisher that was like, we're very sustainable. These are wood. And I was like, yeah, wood that you coated in a poly based paint. So like,
right.
So that's one of the things that like, that's where you can start the conversation, but the conversation gets a lot when you start looking into the specifics of like the actual manufacturing, it starts getting so difficult, because if we just start from like when somebody is at the game store buying the game, and then we work it backwards from there, you talk about the greenhouse gas emissions of like getting the product to the game store, right? And there's lots of conversations about that because people are like, container ships aren't great. And it's like, well, a container ship is better per unit than like a semi truck by a lot. So you got to like weigh that. And then there's a whole conversation of where did the game get manufactured somewhere in the world? And then there's an entire conversation about China is a thing, but regardless of where in the world it's produced, there's a question of like, how was it produced, right? Like, are the facilities using green-based power? Are they just burning coal, or are they like moving to solar, or what? How are they doing that? And then there's a conversation over, if you don't want to have to ship the games long distances, you try to release a game to the entire world, right? How? Because like you can print locally, but your quality is going to be different. And actually there's a whole conversation of like, it's more wasteful to print units, smaller quantities of units at different locations than it is to print a bunch of units at one location and then ship them. So it's a different pool on resources, because no matter where you produce the games, you have to get the supplies to produce the games to that factory. So there's greenhouse emission in that. And then there's the conversation of like, what is the waste produced when you produce this game? So like, how much offcuts are there? If you're using something that's plastic based, literally anything that's plastic based and putting it into the product, there are the process of making plastic and making plastic pieces involve making plastic-based waste that like literally just goes straight into landfill or water sources. So there's that conversation. There's tree waste, wood waste, like all that kind of stuff. And it's, that part is really hard to get a consumer to care about. So yeah.
So as a business, how do you weigh those decisions of, okay, this is important enough that we're gonna eat the cost, even if it's 3 times higher or whatever, you know? Well, what does that metric look like for you?
So for me at this point, it's really simple. I can just be like, cool, I'm not going to make a game that will make me make a bad decision environmentally. So at this point, I live in an age where I can get FSC paper, I can get 100% recycled paper, and it is more expensive than just cheap, we've found it someplace, trust us paper, but it's not as expensive as it was. And as frankly, to be very brutal, as more forests burn down because of global warming and large scale forest fires, there is significantly less paper that is uncertified because those forests aren't maintained, they're burning down. Thus, there's a reason there's a wood and paper shortage right now. Like, it's not just shipping. So that's like a reality, and paper's going to get more expensive. So part of the decision that we're doing as a company is, well, how are we going to handle that? And part of it is, how are we going to make sure we get paper from a place that's sustainable and doing right things so that the paper sources is more secure. So we're using a more secure paper source. And then there's like the conversation of, how can we move away from using a ton of paper as well as not using plastic? Like what can we do? And so that is not a comfortable place to be in the world of tabletop analog games, I will say. But part of that decision is like, I had a game that was pitched to me and it was really fun looking, but it had 36 dice in it. And I was like, we can't do it.
Yeah.
We can't do it because I would do wooden dice and I can't afford 36 wooden dice in this price point. So we just don't sign that game. One of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at games that can use apps. Snowbright Studio is a video game studio and an app studio. So we're looking for games that can use apps to supplement physical products, but still have an engaging physical presence game that people like with tabletop games, to kind of help reduce that impact of materials. So that's another thing we're doing and looking for. And more companies are doing that. I mean, look at Descent, right? Look at Betrayal House on the Hill. Look at Fantasy Flight. Like, they're doing that hardcore right now in-house. So yeah.
You so to jump ahead in what I sent you, do you have a favorite game that includes apps within it, or is there one that you're enjoying? Maybe you can't talk about it yet.
Secrets.
Hmm?
I just said secrets.
Oh yeah, secrets.
Secrets. Yes, we have the best game ever that will give you a small rule book and a big app, and your imagination will go wild. But
I was imagining it was Betrayal, but you were like, I just can't tell anybody.
No. I do really enjoy the Descent game. We have that, and my partner and I have been playing a 2-player, and that one's super fun. I do actually really enjoy Birds of a Feather, which is the card game that I've got coming out on Kickstarter soon. We have the Score app on that. And we also have our app developer. You can't stop her from making apps. She's just really good at it and she loves it. And this is a video podcast, so I can do this. So she just like, we had a team meeting and she was like, I was thinking about making like the app solo, like the solo game and app. And I was like, yeah, we could do that. And she's like, yeah, I did a prototype last night. So we have, it already exists. Ooh, so yeah. And I play this a lot right now. I say that I'm doing it for testing reasons, but at this point it's, I just get hooked into the game. So
was that an American goldfinch on the cover?
No, that is a yellow warbler or a common warbler. You think I would know the birds more at this point, but yeah, so we already have an app and it's got like bird facts and the illustrations from the game. And yeah, that was okay, I guess that exists now.
My niece today and I saw a northern flicker in their backyard. It was pretty exciting. And I guessed an American goldfinch because I have 2 pairs at my feeders every day.
Nice.
Birding was my COVID hobby. So,
it became popular for a lot of people for feeders and stuff. So I have my window that I work at. I enjoy quite a number of birds during the workday. And now I'm like learning what they are.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yep.
I just built suet logs. You can get a tree branch, and then I used a 1-inch paddle bit to put a little inch and a half deep 1-inch hole, and then I'm actually making my own suet now, but and then you smash the suet in there and you'll attract tree clinging birds, or in my case European starlings.
Nice, very nice.
Well, it's a lot of Europeans. Anyway, I'm excited about this game.
I'm excited that you're excited. It's really funny because every time I like have a meeting with somebody right now and we talk about it, or like even a podcast, I find out somebody in the meeting's like a secret birder every time. So yeah, that's awesome.
I'm planting blueberry bushes, not for me, but for the birds.
Nice. That's the bush that's outside my window. It's a blueberry bush that attract all the birds for me to admire.
I should correct that. I planted blueberries for me and the birds. I planted blackberries, 4 blackberry bushes for just the birds in a different part, the birdier part of the yard, the part that I can see.
The birdier part of the yard.
Yeah. My neighbors put up a bird feeder last week, and it was very endearing because I have invited a lot of birds to our house in the last 2 years.
Nice. Neighbors are like, we better get on this train.
And then the squirrels ate it all.
Since we're talking about inviting, let's go back to the sustainability thing.
Yeah.
How do you balance all those issues of sustainability and rising costs and all that with another issue that we have in our industry, which is availability, both in terms of cost and cost of time for people. I mean, I'll just say I noticed that Birds of a Feather is a pretty short game, which is cool.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, whatever you want to say about that.
So one of the things that so Havre kind of broke me from a hobby standpoint, because before I worked at Havre, my favorite game was like Le Havre or Feast for Odin or like Lisboa. Like, oh, loved it. Like a good evening for my partner and I was like, let's set up a game that's going to take us 4 hours. And then I was working at Havre and I was working on like toddler games and I was working on like these medium weight games coming out that were targeted for like 6 or 7 or 8 year olds. And the art and stuff was kid targeted art, but the gameplay was actually really engaging, but it was like very quick. And so I got so spoiled because I went to a Gen Con and it was my first Gen Con after working with Haba. And I did what I always did, which was like, I read the full Gen Con preview and I pre-read rule books and I bought all these games. I got like Black Angel and like all the big heavy, like, oh yeah, games. And we get them home and we go to set it up. And I'm just like, I'm bored. Can we be done now? Let's play this other game. So, I still occasionally enjoy the large games, but like at this point, my partner and I both are just like, can we just play something that's like 30, 40 minutes of like a good brain burn and interaction, and then we can go do something else. And then maybe we play another game. And so from an availability standpoint, I also have found like it's a lot easier to get people down to play like a 30-minute game than a 4-hour game. Especially I lost that game group because of COVID. So that's another part of it. So yeah, but we wanted to do a couple things with our first tabletop game release, which was I wanted to see if I could print a game the way I want to print it sustainably and have it make sense from a cost standpoint and actually see if the market will buy it. And right now I have a great conversation. I have several printers that are like super excited to work with us. Because of the sustainability thing, these printers, like especially like Ludofact and Fabricart and like a few other ones, Magia, like they don't want to be coating paper and plastic because they know how hard it is to get paper. But if the publishers keep ordering that's just gonna be what they have to keep doing. So even Panda, the largest single printer of hobby games, not games, just hobby games. I want to clarify that. They released an environmental statement today, actually. In fact, talking about, what they're moving forward. They, it went out on their socials. And I'm actually on a board of sustainability in tabletop manufacturing. I'm on the board of directors for that. And one of the head of that environmental department at Panda is on that board. And like, they're very serious about moving forward with that. So Birds of Feather, we picked because it's a smaller point price game. It's a smaller point game that we can get away with doing a smaller price point to see if people are willing to, spend a little bit more for a little bit less, but it's better quality. So we're doing that. And the next release is going to be slightly bigger to see if we can like scale it up a little. Okay. So yeah, but I think with availability, our company, games are a hobby thing and it's a luxury hobby, especially the hobby games. But one of the things that we can do with our games is we can try and make the price point make sense for families that are trying to go back into like family game night style, where they're not paying Monopoly. And even Monopoly, like it's $30. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I
know a couple of companies have like partnered with libraries and teachers and things like that. Are you considering anything like that?
Yep. Oh yeah. We definitely, when I have a product physically, we will have a library discount system and things like that. Our Kickstarter, we're actually purposely doing an educator and librarian thing, which will be announced when the Kickstarter goes live.
When do I get to hit back now?
April 12th is the targeted release date. So in a week from today. So yeah, but I got to work with quite a number of educators and librarians when I was at Haba, and I loved it. And I can't announce it yet. We have another thing that we're doing We're doing a partnership with a nonprofit, which will be announced when the Kickstarter goes live,
Okay, cool.
specifically for helping educators use the game in a way that is meaningful. So yeah, I'm really flipping excited about that one. But that information will be embargoed until the Kickstarter launches. So
Totally understand.
and there's
Is
somebody
there-
else's legal department in charge of that one. So I can't even like break or bend the rules because it's not me.
What's
And
the
you're probably-
age range for what's their age range for the game or the grade range?
So we're doing 8 and up, but you could play it with a 7-year-old and probably even a little younger. Honestly, once they learn the strategy nuances, because the game is like, it's not like any other game that I've ever played. Which is one of the reasons I love it. This game was originally kickstarted in 2015, and I have played tons of games, and I can be like, it's kind of like this plus this plus this, but like nothing has hit it specifically. It's kind of like a trick-taking game mixed with a flip and fill. So you have that vibe of like the roll and write flip and fill, but you also have the same feeling you have with a trick-taking game where you're dependent on what other people are playing into the center area. But there's no tricks, but there's still suits. So it's like this, yeah, there's an interesting push and pull that happens during the game in a similar way that you have with like hearts or spades. And then your scoring and whatnot is based on filling out a score sheet a la like flip and fill style. So yeah, for 2015, I think the game was ahead of its time. So I'm really excited. And the really funny thing is that if you go and look it up on BGG, Teal printed 3,000 units of the game. And out of 3,000 units printed for a 2015 release on a small indie Kickstarter, only 49 have been sold on BGG.
Wow.
Over the last 7 years.
That is
So
impressive. Yeah.
That's like real good. I didn't realize I thought he had only printed 1,000, and I was like, the ratio is not great. And he was like, no, I printed 3,000. And I was like, oh, your ratio is real good.
Yeah.
And when we announced it, every time I like do a big tweet about birds of a feather, somebody comes in and goes, you're reprinting that? I still have my copy. So yeah, so I'm really excited. And I know a lot of people who like the game are really excited for it to like be reborn, and come back into print. So yeah.
Yeah. I've only seen one person ever have it, and I've seen a lot of games, but yeah, that's all. And that's why I'm excited to play it. So will the app be available to do scoring, since we're talking about okay, cool.
Yeah. So we had a long discussion internally about do we include score sheets at all? And what it came down to was the intention of the game is we want people to pick it up and play it at, like from a bookstore or from, like for Portland, I'm going to say my grocery store, because my grocery store stocks small card games like this. They sell abandoned artichokes, which I think is really cool. They sell it next to the produce. It's great. Portland. So we had a big conversation about just having the score sheet. So we have the score sheet, and it'll be native to iOS, Android, and web. So you can, any device, you can use the score sheet, and it functions great. And we were debating about not having a physical score sheet at all. And what we decided was we just did kind of an informal poll, and it basically came down to, because the target audience is we want to make this game more available outside of the niche hobby market, and have it in stores and locations that don't necessarily have hobby games. The likelihood that you're like playing with a grandma or young kids, or like there's a situation where like not everyone in the room has a phone or device. We needed some sort of score sheets so you could even just buy the game and take it hiking or camping and do like a no screens experience. So we are including a small single color score pad in the box. We're not including pencils or pens because that just is unnecessary. So many people have that, and the pencils that would fit in the box, people hate anyway. So yeah. And then we will have score sheets available on our website where you can just download them, and there's like 9 per page, and you can just print them off and cut them if you need refills. So yeah, but go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that speaks to availability and accessibility too, because
Yeah, that was a big part of that. Yeah. So we did a poll, and we asked a bunch of people that played the game and loved the game, and a lot of our playtesters, and it was like, could you play this with your mom or your family at like a holiday event if there was no score sheets? And the answer was pretty solidly no.
Yeah.
Even my family, which is very screen heavy, we were like, no, because the kids, like, they don't have screens, they don't have their own devices yet, for reasons. So they're too young. So maybe in 5 years, but yeah. So that's why that's there, which is kind of a bummer, but it also makes a lot of sense. And also, for having had Birds of a Feather for 7 years, I have like hoarded and treasured my score sheets, and I have come up with a way to make a single score sheet last for 10 games. Okay. So I use like different marking systems. And so, yeah, so I made a note in the rule book of like, if you really want to make your score sheets last, do this. So there are tips in the rule book to make your score sheets go very long.
Love it. So I know you've been playing this because I've seen you playing it. You're not lying about that at all. Like, to anybody listening or watching that, I know you have. What else have you been playing lately that you've been enjoying? Have you had time for anything else with getting ready for the Kickstarter?
Yes and no. We've been playing prototypes because we are taking pitches for new games. So the team and I have a set playtest game every Friday, kind of in like the after lunch time period, where we play. Originally, we were playing Birds of a Feather a lot, but now I am no longer winning every game, so I stopped that. I was like, we can't. No more. So the team is too good now. So we have been playing prototypes, and there's been some really good ones. There's been some not so good ones, but there's that. Otherwise, I have been playing mostly 2-player with my partner. The other night we played Patchwork Express because that's where my mental capacity was. The children's version of Patchwork. Yep. But I really also like Kabuto Sumo. That's another one that I've been playing a good amount recently. And then Skulls of Sedlec. Okay. Skulls of Sedlec. It's from Button Shy Games. It's a small wallet game, and it's 2-player, and it has quickly become like my favorite 2-player game. Really? So it's 18 cards.
You shouldn't have told me that. Okay. I have too many Button Shy already. So
yeah. Okay. I used to like Circle of Wagons was like my go-to. And I actually like would order cases from Jason, and he would send me like 12 at a time, and I would just like give them out to people. And now I'm going to start doing that with Skulls instead. So
you like this better? Okay.
I like it better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine. So I'll look it up. What are some of your favorite experiences playing games? Because obviously you've been playing for a few years. How'd you get into the hobby tabletop game experience, and what has sustained you through that?
I got into tabletop gaming. I've always enjoyed gaming. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to play board games.
What does that mean? Monopoly or what?
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was the mainstream stuff. Like my brother and I played a lot of Stratego. College, I played a lot of Risk. But I always was leaning more towards like the most strategic games I could. My family, we played a lot of Monopoly as like a family. Not my favorite, but we played it. We had one game that lasted 6 months. It was like a thing. We had to start manufacturing new money. Yep. Anyway, so there was kid, and then I graduated college and got a job in Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley actually has like a really kind of big hobby game community. and I got involved with the D&D group. And whenever the GM was not ready for the day to like play that week, they would be like, hey, let's just play this game instead. And they had like a closet of like magic wonders, and it was just a bunch of hobby games from Fantasy Flight and a bunch of stuff I'd never heard of. And the one that like put its teeth in me was Dominion. Just Oh yeah. So played tons and tons of Dominion, and then it was just like a snowball. Like I got Race for the Galaxy and then Ascension, and then like got into train games, Steam, Martin Wallace stuff. Just and then Kickstarter was like starting to become a thing then, because this was like 2012, 2013. And so I found like Kings of Air and Steam and like the Tasty Menstrual stuff, and it just like and so one day I was in an airport and I had a camera and I was like, what should I do? My flight was delayed. And my friend was like, you should do a YouTube video about that game that you love. And so I did. And then I edited it and I put it out, and it became the #1 video on BGG that week. And I was like, holy shit. And then I launched a YouTube channel reviewing games in weird places.
Oh, okay.
I love that.
Yeah. And then fast forward 4 years, and I quit my day job as a high paid senior tech developer in Silicon Valley. And I go freelance doing community management, marketing, and stuff for tabletop games. And then now I own a tabletop company. So
so you just explained the natural progression. If somebody keeps buying games, what will happen?
Yep.
No. So you didn't mention any titles, but did you get into any of the old FFG games, or is like there's a token for everything? Like, here's your life, here's your magic, here's your magic life. You know what I'm saying? Like they used to do some of that with
they really did. My game group was more into that. I was really not.
Okay.
There wasn't a single FFG game that we would play. I guess like, no, not even. Like I'm like thinking of it. Like none of them I really cared for, but the guy I was dating at the time really cared for them. So we played a lot of that. But
I mean, they were just such huge opposite of what you were talking about with sustainability.
Oh yeah.
I remember those early FFG games, and we'd get excited and buy Arkham Horror, and like I'm a big Lovecraft fan, and I play it, and I was like, let's quit. What do you mean? I'm like, it's been like 3 hours, man. I'm not having any fun. I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah. My only Arkham Horror story is that my friends and I, because we were in the Bay Area, and there's a train that goes from San Diego up to Seattle. And for PAX, back when this was PAX Prime, the only PAX, there was a group of people that would hop the train in San Diego and ride it all the way to Seattle, and they would play tabletop games or like make a LAN party on the train the whole way. And it's the Coastal Express, and it actually runs through Portland. And different people that lived along the train would join the train as you go. So we joined the train in San Francisco. We boarded, and it was like 9 a.m. And it's a 24-hour ride from San Francisco. And we were invited to play Arkham Horror on the train for a ride. And the game started at like 10 a.m. And I rage left the game after like 6 hours. And then they were like wrapping up the game like an hour before we pulled into the station in Seattle. Because like they just kept having stuff happen, and like it was they were on a train and like stuff. Yeah. So that's my only Arkham Horror story. And it I still have the t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh man.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
And I mean, I like a bunch of FFG games, but there were definitely some stuff even before that where it's like, what were they doing?
They were dense.
I don't know. I was geeked about living card games for a while, got really involved in them, and then realized that they can't actually be sustainable. And now I'm an old grump.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the whole market with the CCGs. And I mean, like you look at like what's happening with all the CG, like it's a whole business model. So yeah, they're not sustainable in several ways, both for their players and the environment. But yeah, I got really into Star Wars Destiny back when it was like a thing.
Somebody loves dice.
I would make really, really stupid Destiny decks that would be like, they would win on the edge cases. And so I'd go in and like beat the person who should have won that night, because we had a weekly game, a Destiny night. And, you know, they would be so upset because they would come in with, you know, like Palpatine, whatever. And you know what I'm talking about.
So I love to mill. I love to mill people's decks. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah, like a vehicle mill deck, you know, something ridiculous like that. That like people are like, why would you build that? And I'm like, because it's fun. But no, you're exactly right. I mean, it was a whole lot of fun to play that game, but
the only thing I remember about that game is people having like family size leftover tote containers, like Tupperware, filled with dice at the game store. And then there was the Marvel one that had the smaller dice. And like Dice Masters. Oof. And Quarriors. Quarriors was dope though. Quarriors was that was just a standalone board game that you played for like 1 week, and then you never played again because you loved it so much that you got completely burned out. I might be projecting. I think my experience was very similar also to Quarriors, but Quarriors came out and then like 2 years later they just turned it into Dice Masters. And it was like it was like the same core mechanics, like literally they just boosterized it. So yeah, subscription based gaming. So I mean that's the kind of the thing is that I don't know about you, and maybe you can talk about this, but for me, I didn't used to think about that side of things at all, of like, hey, it took this much energy and this much time and these people to produce this thing that I'm playing now. So maybe that's a progression that people, consumers, can get to if we help them. But yeah, what was the thing that helped you to start thinking about that, especially if you used to play Destiny too? So a lot of it was just there's like this evolution of hobby gamers, and there's actually it's happening right now with a wave of content creators. You see this happen a lot. Like there's almost a formula to it. And Gil Hova actually did like a blog post about this once, and it was perfect. But basically there's this wave that happens in the hobby where people come in, they get really excited, and then they just like buy everything. And there's this whole completionist vibe and this fear of missing out, and their collection grows, and there's like this pride thing. And then at a certain stage, the number is different for everybody. The number turns into a guilt thing where they feel guilty that they have so many games. And so then they feel guilty that they're not playing games that they've bought, and they haven't invested into these games, but they're still like feeling obligated to buy more. And so then they have these huge collections that are just sitting and gathering dust, and they never have time to play their old loved games and this thing. And so then what ends up happening is they end up having to call or purge, or like they put games in storage, or they just don't know what to do with it. And then you end up in this cycle of like, well, what do I do with this game that I enjoy and I did enjoy, but I can't sell it online because nobody wants it for whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. And so you constantly have this conversation whenever I talk about like I'm selling games or I'm getting rid of games, because our collection, we went down from, at one point the most I ever had I think was 600 or 700 games, and we got down to 200 during the pandemic. We did a hard, like, we got rid of 200 games and we set a 200 game limit, and we got down to that. I don't know where we're at now. But whenever I talk about calling games, people always on Twitter are like, how do you do it? What do you do? How do you get rid of games like sustainably, or how, like, what do you do with these? So yeah, it's, I see this cycle constantly, and like, no pun included, just had this last year. They just hit that cycle. And then Ella Loves Games, content creator, same dealio. Danny's done this. It's Rodney Smith did this a few years ago, and he instituted a rule where he has to play every game in his collection at least once a year, or else it goes.
Like it's a thing. So different people cope with it in different ways, but like it's a cycle that I do see happening. And then you have some people that are just like, no, I'm a collector and I have the house and I have the space and I'm just going to keep collecting and I'm not going to worry about it. So that happens less. I think there's more people that like eventually just they burn out on the hobby because they have too many games and they just can't play them anymore. Or they feel bad about it from for various reasons.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that. I also have called it the field of dreams, where people are like, I work too much, I'm dissatisfied with my life. If I buy this game, I will be able to play it. And they keep doing that.
Yep.
And then I have done it. And my wife one time was like, yo, you work a lot of overtime so that you can buy games that you never play.
Yeah. And my partner and I had the same exact conversation at a certain point where it was like, you love these games and you buy these games and you research these games and then you don't have time to play them because you're too busy researching other games. And I was like,
It hurts.
maybe. Yeah. It's like, yeah, maybe.
Why do you gotta bring the truth into this? This is my hobby.
Yeah, well, he has the same problem. But his games, his issue is he gets solo games, and he really has some great. When we met, he had a great solo game collection. But they're like solidly solo games. There's no 2-player in a lot of them, and he holds on to them because he's like, no, I really enjoy it. I want to do it. And I'm like, babe, when was the last time you played a solo game? Because like, if you have the opportunity to sit down and play a game, and I'm around, you usually want me to play with you. So there's that. And then at the same point, like when I go out of town for a week for business, you don't set up and play a solo game. You go play with our friends. Like you go play with people. So it's one of those where that was a hard truth that he had to come to, where he was like, I can't justify buying these solo games anymore because I'm never playing them. Because I enjoy playing games too much with my partner. Well, with me. So yeah, but yep.
I mean, it reminds me of the fact that like all change is lost. And so like if you can help somebody mourn that in a way that they can also celebrate, then maybe that's part of the conversation too. So
wow, Christopher, did you just say all change is loss?
Yeah, what? Why?
God, that's something to talk to my therapist tomorrow.
Yeah, that was
okay.
It's good though. No, it was deep. It was important.
Yeah, it's on the nose. It makes sense. It clicked. It just it clicked in a way that was a little I
mean, like, it was wrong in that it was emotionally opening. Which is uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. Well, that's me. I'm usually a little too uncomfortable. Let's end with this. What's your favorite experience that you've had playing the game with your partner that you can share?
I was gonna say, have you read my Twitter? Early in the pandemic, we instituted some very not safe for work or family friendly house rules, so we won't share any of those.
Yeah.
Look, we decided for the pandemic at a certain point, we hit like the 12-month, because Oregon and Portland never went out of lockdown. We never had a no masks. There was never like a lull in the summer of 2021. Like we've been basically in just isolation quarantine, the two of us, most of the time. We bubbled with a couple, which was really great. But so like at the 12-month mark, we started calculating what a round trip to Mars would be. And so we put it on the calendar and was like, this is when we'll be back from Mars. And if the pandemic's not over by then. So anyway, my favorite experiences with my partner is when we just have fun playing the game stupidly, not necessarily about like competing or winning, or just like having fun in whatever way, where we're just like laughing because the decisions we're making are just so frustratingly like good. I don't know. We played Patchwork Express because like I said, that was the mental state that the fortitude I had was to play the children's Patchwork. He beats me at Patchwork 9 times out of 10. I don't know what it is about his brain. He cannot pack a suitcase or like a car to save his life, but put polyomino tiles on a board, he's got that. So like he 100% his Patchwork boards frequently. And I was like playing and I was trying my hardest at children's Patchwork. And I ended up getting a score of -7 and he got a score of 10. And I was just like cussing him out the entire time at a children's game. And I went into that game knowing he would win. And it was still like super fun. And I would absolutely play it with him again immediately. So that's a most recent experience. But like whenever we play games, that's how we play games. So yeah. And that kind of ties into the back when we were playing the big 4-hour games. We didn't have those experiences much because like we wouldn't be as loosey-goosey with our decisions for a big 4-hour game. You know, it was a lot more serious and we wouldn't like I'm just going to see what this does kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that was another thing that the pandemic kind of gave us was we actually started playing. We had more time, but we played shorter games and had more fun with them because we were less worried about like making poor decisions. So yeah.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to say to us?
I mean, I want to hear about good gaming experiences from you both.
Oh,
it's not all about me.
Well, it's primarily about you.
I know, and it feels weird.
We've talked about mine on before, but mine with my wife are always just involved smack talk and good times.
Games.
We play trick-taking games, and my wife just got really big into rolling rights, so I think she's going to be really excited next week.
Nice. We got a perfect game for that.
Yeah.
Well, and we're organizing some games online with like content creators and influencers and people with podcasts. If you are on our press list, you can get in and schedule a slot to come play the game on Tabletopia.
Christopher would have to show me how to use Tabletopia. Yeah.
I'm writing things.
Christopher's writing this down. Yes.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't know if you all are on our
so
press list, but you should definitely sign up if you
I tried to sign up. I don't know if I'm
if you did, it's there.
Okay.
It's a big list and I'm not in charge of it.
Okay.
My community manager is in charge of that. So
okay. I don't know if we're that important. I mean, we get a decent amount of people downloading the podcast, but
we're important. The people that listen to us are dedicated.
I'm
small
just gonna,
but passionate.
We have a good group of listeners. I don't know that many people watch me play anything. I'm the solo player on Twitch who is the guy just sitting there for an hour and a half by myself on Twitch. So anyways, there we go. See, we got to cut right at it. We all had some counseling time. There we go. My favorite gaming experiences are the ones where I make myself look terrible like this. There we go.
Christopher,
awkward.
You have a favorite gaming experience every game? Are you lucky guy? I'm teasing.
There's the smack talk.
I only like smack talk. That's my favorite.
I might just cut all that out because I think I just embarrassed T.
I think you're embarrassed.
Oh no, I don't get embarrassed.
I'm fine.
Ryan and I have talked about this before. That like I don't read faces well. It's a thing for me, and so I don't know if I've ever actually said this on the podcast. So we might as well keep it on here. But sometimes I think I have cut guests off who were willing to talk longer, and then I only find out afterwards that like Ryan will go like, that wasn't the normal social interaction thing. And I'm like, it's not. I had no clue at all. So,
but I also have no idea how to end anything. So it's good that Christopher's also like, all right,
we're done now. Yeah, no. Well, no, you all are great to chat with, and I would chat with more, for sure.
You've been really busy, so I don't want to keep you too long. But
I'm on camera.
April 12th.
I also want to say, like, for the people watching, so they understand this joke. So when Christopher emailed me about coming on the podcast, I was like, I can do audio for sure, but I have a Kickstarter launching. And like when I wrote the email, I think I was like, I have a Kickstarter launching in 14 days. So at 5 p.m. my time, I often don't look camera good. And so we were gonna play it by ear on if my camera was on or not. And my camera's on, so I'm doing pretty good today.
Yeah.
We had some great news today, which made me really excited about the partnership. Oh, and speaking of it, I will say, speaking of a accessibility thing, I'm just going to plug this really quick. One of the things I can announce is that we secured a partnership with 64-ounce Games, which is a game company that makes accessibility kits for games. So he makes Braille or touch grids, different accessories that make sense to be made so that low visibility site or low vis seers, I don't know how to phrase that right, people with low vision can play the games with sighted players. So there will be an add-on on the Kickstarter where you can purchase a Braille accessibility kit to come with your copy of Birds of a Feather so that you can make your copy of Birds of a Feather blind gamer friendly, and it doesn't impact gameplay at all. So you can play with sighted and non-sighted people at the same time. So I'm like super stoked about that.
That is amazing. I mean,
yeah.
There's so few games that have that. That's really great.
They fill an online store at 64ouncegames.com. So yeah, he's been operating for, I think 8 years. And he's got a good selection of games up there. A lot of them are accessibility kits for like the more mainstream games, which makes sense because parents are they're desperate to try and find something to do with their kids that have low sight. So it makes sense to have those for like Trouble and Sorry and that kind of stuff. But he also has a good selection of hobby games as well. But it's hard to convert a lot of hobby games to work for that just because there's so much information conveyed frequently on like, just think of like player boards, right? And like board state. And yeah, so I was really excited. I reached out to him to see if we could do it for birds, and he was like, oh yeah. So I was over the moon, and I'm really excited that that's happening. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I'll definitely have to look into that. So
I'm
excited to compost a game in the future. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yep.
You know, maybe not any for my collection. They're all UV coded, which like I don't really care about. Games are meant to be played, books are meant to be read.
Yes.
You know, I don't cherish anything because change is loss.
We learned that today. This is true. But yeah. Our game will be 100% compostable. I got that guarantee from the factory, but it would be better if your game can be played and enjoyed by other people. You pass it on to somebody that can enjoy it.
I was going to play it down until it can't be played anymore.
That is also an option. So
Then I picked up composting a lot. I have like 4 bins. I'm getting stuff from Starbucks to compost.
Nice.
I'm like,
are you doing your own garden?
Yeah, I'm going to do some hugelkultur. I don't know if that's how
Nice.
it's said, but it's a type of permaculture. I just planted 10 fruit trees.
Nice.
I'm excited.
I'm very jealous of your land at this point, from what I'm hearing.
Ohio.
Yeah, we just have my Portland house, but we have 2 fruit trees, we have blueberries, blackberries, we have pears, we have apple crisps, and then we have all the main herbs now. And then I have 10 raised garden beds. And that's just my front yard, and I'm gonna expand into my backyard starting this season. So yeah, I'm really excited. But all my starters are on my washing machine right now. But I already have my lettuces, all my arugula and kale and stuff. We actually did our first spinach and arugula harvest for dinner 2 days ago. So I'm very excited about that. And we have completely got off the rails. And Christopher's like,
no. I'm thinking this means that there has to be, I was just thinking this morning, there needs to be a game where you have starters and you are growing stuff. I know there's tons of games about gardening and there's, but why not a small sustainable one?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Halfway through the video, if I had a weird color, that was my starters are on a timer, and that was my color changed halfway
your
through.
UV. Yeah. Turning off.
But I was confused. I was like, what happened? So yeah, I'm very excited. Strawberries.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We got strawberries going too every year. I like a lot of the perennial stuff. I usually go with perennials. So yeah, but
I'm not that deep into it. I look forward to our next conversation on the Board Again Gaming podcast where we talk about gardening.
yeah. I mean, I'm always down if you just want to like hit me up on Twitter. I'm the one tar on Twitter. I will happily talk about my stars and garden
you are
plants.
very active on Twitter.
I'm super, yeah. I've been less active recently because I've just had long work days, but yeah. So I'd love to nerd out about my garden, and I don't do it a lot because I'm like people aren't here for this.
I wish I was on Twitter now
Uh-uh.
because I am here for this.
Thank you, T. Maybe we'll see you at Origins if you're there. If
Yeah.
not, elsewhere. So thank you.
We will
so
have a
much.
Snowbright booth at Origins. So yeah.
Super. We'll see you there probably.
Awesome.
So take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.